City of FAR, Cameron County,
Present.
Vidal County, present. Brownsville, present. City of McAllen, City of Edinburgh,
Here.
City of Mission,
Present, ma'am.
City of Harlingen,
Here.
City of San Benito,
Here.
Cameron County RMA,
Here.
Vidal County RMA,
Here.
Valley Metro,
Here.
TechStot,
Here.
LRGVDC,
Here.
RGV Partnership. You have a quorum.
All right. Thank you. Item 3, public comments. Do we have any signed up? No? All right. Very good. Item 1, approval of the July 14th, 2021 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I've got 2 corrections. Shows me as being present at the time. All the city manager Dan Serna was actually present. And then the minutes also stated July 14th and the July 14th meeting and then are approved May 26th.
We were approving the May 26th meeting. Is that right? Okay.
Those corrections.
All right. Are there any other corrections? If not, we have a motion to approve with those corrections by Mayor, second by Mayor Cañas. Mayor Boswell on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. All right, consent agenda item 2.1, discussion on right-of-way funding update. Ms. Gattosa from TechStot.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Norma Garza. I am the Director of Transportation Planning and Development with TechStot, and I'm here to give an update. I'm hoping this works.
He'll advance it for you.
Okay. So you can go to the next one, the first one. So just as a background information, back in May of this year, we were given notification by our right-of-way division to cease work on any acquisitions that we were doing for projects that were not in fiscal year 20 or 21. And then later it was expanded. The next one, please. It was also expanded to local government projects that were being covered with category 7 for right-of-way acquisition. So then, that was done because there was a budgeting issue or a finance issue where there was more demand or they were anticipating more payouts than what funding that was available. So they told us to kind of stop and they were going to kind of go back and look at it and see what they could do to prevent this from happening in the future. So back in late June, early July, they came back and started having discussions. And what they came up with was what we're showing here in the next slide, which is basically starting this fiscal year 22, which is September 1st, they're going to start giving each district its own allocation for right-of-way funding. And it also includes, in our case, it's also going to be that we're going to have to cover the local government expenditures using CAT 7 for right-of-way and utility reimbursements. So basically what that means is that now we're all going to be, both TechStot and the local governments are going to have to start prioritizing our needs, because now based on whatever allocation they give us per fiscal year, that's all that we're going to have available to use or expend that year, basically from August or September 1st of 21 to August 31st of 2022. That is our fiscal year 22. So it's going to basically put us all in that position that we're going to have to prioritize our projects, identify which projects we're going to want to move forward with in this next year. And our first priority should be projects that are in our current STIP or construct years, which is 22 to 25. And that's kind of, I'm just summarizing what the bullet points that are there, but the importance is going to be that prioritization. And in the TAC meeting a couple of weeks ago, we made the request that we were going to send out an email, or right-of-way staff sent out an email to the various local governments asking for them to submit to us their priorities, their projected expenditures in this fiscal year. And then we're going to look at that once we get the deadline is tomorrow. So once we get all that information, we'll be able to kind of go through it and try to make a determination of what projects, I guess, we can provide some funding for, some allocations to local government so that they can continue with the procurement or the acquisition of right-of-way and paying for the utilities. The next one, please. So this is the process that we're going to be following this fiscal year, like I mentioned. So you have there the 3 different areas of the local government responsibilities or duties, TechStot, and then our right-of-way division. So, like I mentioned, we made the request for those expenditures, or I guess anticipated expenditures that are coming in 22. And then we also asked them to provide us a schedule, because we got to make sure that that funding is going to be done. And then also, like I mentioned, the priority will be on projects that are going to be going to letting in 22 to 25. That's going to be our first priority. We're also going to be requesting that the local government submit to us monthly updates because we want to be able to see that progress. The expectation is that we spend this money in this fiscal year, so we want to see that there's activity. In the past, we haven't been very successful with local governments providing us updates when we ask for them. So, now it's going to be very important. It's going to be imperative that we get these updates on a monthly basis and that we show these expenditures. And that's the last bullet there, that submit the reimbursement request as soon as possible. Because I know everybody has their processes that have to go through with whether it's their accounting or finance or what have you, but it's going to be very important that we get those and to be able to process them. That way we can show there's activity in those projects and not, kind of holding things up. And TxDOT side, the district, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using those status reports and kind of, monitoring, making sure that projects are moving forward, that expenditures and progress is being made. And then we're gonna kind of track that. So whatever allotment is given to any local government, we're going to track that to make sure that they don't exceed that, for one. But then also, that's that last bullet there that I have under TxDOT, is that if we see, that there is a project that is not moving forward, that progress is not being made for whatever reason, and I'm thinking maybe around the January timeframe, maybe about 6 months, 5 months into our fiscal year, we're going to evaluate that. And if we see that, we'll contact that local government and ask them what's happening, kind of see what the issues are, what they're seeing. But if we see that that project is not going to move or it's not going to be any expenditures, then we have that discretion, because it is state funds that are being utilized, to maybe reallocate that funding to another project that maybe might need it, that maybe it's accelerating faster or needs more funding, or we also want to be in a position that we're going to lose out money, or we're going to leave money on the table, so to speak, because that'll actually carry over into the following year. They'll see how much our expenditures, and it may have that impact into what they give us next year. And then the last box there is the right-of-way division. So the people up in Austin, they're going to be monitoring us. So whatever projects that we select, both TxDOT and projects that the local governments are going to be moving forward with, we have to put that on a list. There is a list, a tool that we had to submit to our right-of-way division, and that's how they have how much we need, what we anticipate being needed for fiscal years 22 and 23. And then they're going to expect us, we tell them we're going to be working on projects A, B, C, D, then they're going to expect to see expenditures and reimbursement requests for projects A, B, C, whatever we have, they're going to monitor that. If we try to submit something or we get something that is not in an approved list, it's not going to be reimbursed. So that's why it's very important that, whatever projects are submitted as priorities, that we have that commitment from the local governments that that's what they're going to work on and focus on, just the way TxDOT is going to do for our projects. So that's kind of the summary in the bottom, is like, it is imperative that the district and the local governments prioritize our projects based on project health, ranking, and letting date to make sure that we do not lose any right-of-way funds. So this is a summary of, like I said, we don't have the amount that's going to be allocated to us at this time. We're expecting to get it hopefully by the end of the month, is what we're being told. But just based on information that we currently have, our right-of-way staff was able to kind of put this, and it's kind of small, I can't really see it, but I believe in fiscal year 22, it's over $48 million. That's what we need total. And that includes both off-system and on-system right-of-ways and utilities. And then in 23, you can see that it's over 155 million. So it's quite a bit of money that we're going to be needing. Again, we don't know how much we're going to receive, but just as you can see there, just local governments, I believe it's over $14 million, and TxDOT, it's over $34 million. So that's how you come up with that 48. So it's going to be some, we're going to have to make some decisions, both on TxDOT side, and the local governments have to prioritize their projects as well. Next one, please.
Real quick, can you tell us what we received the last 2 fiscal years?
Well, the thing is that this is new.
So there you can't.
No, in the past, the way it would work is it was basically covered under an umbrella for the right-of-way division. So they had their budget, and they don't work on, or they don't identify like categories, like saying category 7, 10. They don't identify what that is. Just to them, it's just the budget of state funds for right of way. So the way it would work is it was covered there. So it wasn't a first come, first serve.
But I mean, Pete, we can still get that information, even though it may have not been as specific in prior years as it's going to be going forward.
Yes, we could definitely go back, look at our books, and determine how much money was expended for the various. I just want to point out what she just mentioned. Right-of-way division had an umbrella over all districts and what have you. Here, we are now being asked to track the funding due to budget constraints. And so we'd be more than happy, Judge, to go back and give you those numbers.
Yeah, we could find out how much was spent, but not how much was allocated, because we didn't have allocation, but how much expenditures that we could get.
Norma?
If there's a legal battle on a right of way, is that going to affect the moving funds? Like if they report the people are fighting it illegally, then is that going to affect funds if it's not moving?
I mean, it could. And I say that because the next slide here is those are the projects that we have that were used to account for the amounts that were shown for the off system. So because we do have some of those as well. TxDOT has some projects that are going through eminent domain proceedings. So we have to account for that. And, because we don't know, they may be settled during that year. So we have to be able to do that. So yeah, that is a possibility. If there is one that you have that's like that, we can account for it, or you can account for it and tell us, hey, look, this is what we have. And it could fall into that side of things where if it's not moving, and you have money allocated to it, it maybe have to be given to another one or used somewhere else if that particular item or project is not going to move forward.
I also like to point out, if I may, that this is a reimbursement process from TxDOT. So projects that are right-of-ways being purchased by the local government, they go through the entire process. Once they actually do a closing, that's when the local government will request a reimbursement through TxDOT. That may be the case, Frank, where you're working through a project, it gets tied up in legal battles, pushes the estimate back. But that's why it's imperative also that we have an update from the local government on a monthly basis to let us be able to track, anticipate, and if something's going to get pushed back, well, then that may give us a little bit more authority to go after other projects that are also priority.
And that's really all I have. I think the last slide is just any questions. So
I have a few comments. You're asking the MPO to prioritize projects and then submit it to TxDOT for them to prioritize projects. And the fact that you're asking us to prioritize implies that there's not going to be enough money to go around. So who ultimately is going to decide what projects get funded and which ones don't?
Depending on the allocation that we receive, because, like I mentioned, for fiscal year 22, it's about $48 million that we're anticipating needed. I don't think we're going to get it based on kind of what we're hearing. We're not going to get the entire amount, but who knows? So if that is the case that we don't get enough money, then yes, we are going to have to do that. But that's why we didn't want to make the decision, like in your case, for example, Hidalgo County, it's 4 precincts. Each precinct has their own priorities. Well, the ask that we had was for the county to tell us, okay, these are our priorities, 1, 2, 3. And then depending on how much money is available, we would make those allocations, because we don't want to be the ones telling you, hey, you're only going to work on this one when it's not our project, it's yours. So we were expecting, and that's what we want. We want that recommendation or the request to come from the local government itself.
But will you at TxDOT be changing that priority?
It depends on the funding. It may not be the priority itself, but we may change maybe some of the requests because we don't have the money. Now, I will point out that the request is to prioritize the ones in construct years. So you need to focus on 22 to 25. If you have a project, you submit a project that's in 27, 20, 29, chances are it's not going to be because it's not in the construct years. So that's where I'm asking, or we're asking, I should say, for the counties or the local governments to prioritize and keep that in mind. Because that's where it's going to be, the need is in the construct years, because those are the more pressing.
And when do you anticipate getting your budget?
They're telling us by the end of the month or early September. So once we get that and we use this information and we kind of go through our process, we would be sending a letter specifically to the local government giving all the allocations. So that's kind of what the plan is.
Just one point of clarification. We have asked all local governments to prioritize their projects. Those projects are then submitted to the MPO, and then the MPO as a whole will provide us a listing of priority projects. And so that's key. In some cases, Hidalgo County, for example, 4 precincts, Some cities may have one, possibly two projects. So we need to understand what that priority is in order for us to be able to submit our request for the district, the FAR district on system, but plus also the off system.
Yeah, but my concern is that we spend a lot of money to develop these projects to get them ready. You know, we go through the process of the AFA, and then to be told that we might not qualify because there's not enough money is, you know, an investment of taxpayer money, but to delay projects because of that, you know, seems a little unfair to somebody that spent millions of dollars trying to get projects ready to go.
Understood.
All right. Norma, anything else? All right, does anybody else have any further questions? All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Item 2.2, discussion possible action of fiscal year 2019 TASA projects, updates, and potential AFA amendments.
Good afternoon. My name is Eva Garcia. I'm the planner 3 for the bike ped coordinator. And I just wanted to give an update on our TASA projects. So my objectives are to cover just where we are with the fiscal year 2017 TASA projects, then discuss what's going on with fiscal year 2019 TASA projects and potential AFA amendments that we'll be facing. I gave an update before about the 2017 projects, and I'm happy to report that all projects are moving forward. The 2 planning projects requests within the deadline. The Donna project is moving forward. They did put in the extra money, the city did, and they're finalizing their bid documents. And so we have a meeting with TxDOT FAR District September 7th, and we'll be ensuring, hopefully, that the FPA request will go in no later than that day. Regarding the fiscal year 2019 projects, there were a lot of good projects here. However, we did see some challenges in ensuring that the funds would be obligated by September 22. At first, I want to discuss the RGV bike share program. At the time of the application, the cities or the local government contribution was estimated at $136,000 relatively. And then when the AFA was drafted, that number increased to about $272,000 roughly for the local government contribution. Additionally, because of the way that the project was awarded funds, as you're aware, Valley Baptist Legacy Foundation funded some bike share in Cameron County. And when you compare the cost of the stations per station, the cost increased dramatically using the TASA funds. Additionally, because they're federal requirements, the stations in Cameron County had steel from China, whereas this project would need U.S. steel, and that would increase costs as well. And since we couldn't lock down those costs, we're basically concerned that the funds would not be able to obligate by September 2022. And so we started discussions with Jackson Hike and Bike Project. This project in 2019 was requesting over $2 million in the TASA award. However, they were only awarded $400,000. And because of that, they did not have the additional funding they needed to construct the full length of the trail as proposed per the application. Because of this and some other right-of-way challenges, we discussed having AFA amendments to change the scope of work and redefine what was financially possible for construction in order to ensure the project obligates those funds. So with this, basically, we're still working on this, and we're hopeful that we will be able to come to you next month for the potential reprogramming of the $408,000 for bike share. And that's basically a big change from the funding. These are all Hidalgo County TASA funds from 2019. And so they are staying in Hidalgo County potentially if we move forward with the changes as discussed. Does anyone want to have any questions on this before I move forward in the slide or add any comments?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's basically it for this item.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions for Eva? All right, thank you for that update.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Hit it, Miguel.
It's possible action. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, sir, it's possible, but not this month. We're
gonna wait
next month to bring that back.
All right. All right. Item 2.3, discussion possible action of projects for fiscal year 2021-2022 TASA funds.
Thank you. So our project, the TASA program call did close at the end of July. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee did meet the first week of August and were able to evaluate the projects. However, I do want to review the recent TASA amendments that were passed in September and then provide an overview of what applications came in. So basically, I wanted to reiterate that some of these amendments that changed through the TxDOT Transportation Commission allows preliminary engineering and environmental documentation to be eligible, expense reimbursed for communities under the 50,000 population. And so that's going to come in play. We got a total of 8 applications received. 5 of them were for construction, 3 of them were for planning. You can see here that half of them leveraged other funding sources, which I thought was really great, and that half of them had less than 25% of their PSND complete. And for me, that says that we can work towards having more shovel-ready projects and developing plans for bike ped infrastructure. Here are the list of applications received, separated by category from construction. Again, 63%, I believe 5 of the applications were for construction. You can see in the table below what was available. We had relatively $2 million available for construction, and the request came in at about $4 million. For planning, we have $230,000 available, and the request came in at just a little over what the ask was at $258,000. And then the big table that you see there was how the project scored. It was a little bit challenging, I suppose, to have all the projects evaluated by the same number of people virtually and with the time constraint. And so we did average the project scores. There was not, however, any action taken by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And so at our September 1st meeting, we'll be reviewing this item again to prepare and take action on a recommended list. This is the planning. These are the planning projects and the planning dollars. Basically, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee did take action to prorate the requests so that way all of the planning applications that were submitted could potentially be awarded funds. So that's what this table is showing. And so this is basically the next steps is we're meeting September 1st, we being the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. We'll be returning to the Technical Advisory Committee September 9th, and then officially award through you all here the TASA funds via a resolution on September 22nd. And so our goal is to send notice of award letters as recommended by some of the municipalities, and outlining project details, kind of these AFA expectations, what direct state costs might be, so that way that the cities are aware and the board members are aware prior to the AFAs being executed.
Any questions? Go ahead.
That's it. Are there any questions?
All right. Are you recommending any action at this point?
At this point, we're not ready for action. Thank you.
All right. No questions?
Just real quick, Judge, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mayor.
On this, it's not an action item. Is that like a formality or a policy that we have to wait for those other ones, for those other meetings to take place? No action can be taken right now? Because I noticed you said you're not ready.
That is the typical protocol, is that the advisory committee is there to make a recommendation based on those stakeholders. But we're at your will.
Mayor, the process as it was established before we started was to follow that the Bike Ped Advisory would score, rank, and then make a recommendation to the Technical Advisory Committee. They did score and rank, but because of time constraints, they made no formal recommendation. So we have no recommendation from BPAC to move forward to TAC, and we have no recommendation from TAC to bring forward to the policy board for official answer, for official action. Of course, it's always at the behest of the policy board to do as they would, see fit, but following the recommendation that we set forward when we started the process was to follow any action that was taken by the Bike Ped Advisory Committee and then TAC. That's why we have no action today, but it will be voted on next month, which would allow us time to get that into the TIP MTP amendment that we're doing and wrapping up by September 28th for the November's revision. So the timing works out perfectly for staff.
And I'll add, it does work out additionally so that we can ensure the costs are accurate and that, if there are railroad considerations, and we can just better dive into the projects and have more accurate numbers and information for the board next month.
There was a very small amount of money, I think about $34,000 left over after these projects were selected. Staff has not moved forward to have a conversation with the next local government that would be number 4 on the list to see if they would be interested in that $34,000 or so to go towards their project. It wouldn't fully fund it, but we haven't had the opportunity yet until coming today to update the board on having that conversation with the next local government if they would have any interest in those funds to be able to utilize it for the project that they submitted. It, of course, in no way fully funds their project at all, but it's something to go towards developing the project, and we haven't engaged on that yet until notifying the policy board where we are.
Okay. Any further questions? All right. Thank you, Eva. Item 2.4, discussion on the emergency management funds.
Good afternoon. My name is Missy Lowe. I'm with TxDOT Maintenance Division. Thank you all very much for having me this afternoon. I'm a little nervous. It's my first time to have an in-person meeting in a while. It's good to see everybody's faces again.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the 2 federal reimbursement programs, FEMA and FHWA.
If it'll help you, you can just pretend we're all on screen right now.
Okay. We're all in a big Zoom meeting.
That's big Zoom.
So it all begins with the governor's proclamation or disaster event. Sometimes, like the big Hurricane Harvey, we get a governor's declaration before the event ever happens. Most of the time, the event has already began before we get the governor's proclamation. So when we have the governor's proclamation and we actually send out a notification letter to you guys, letting the judges know that your county has been declared for an emergency. At that point, we need to figure out your functional classification of roadway. If it's FHWA eligible, it has to be a 1 through 5. FEMA takes care of 6 and 7. So I just made a flow chart so that way when a disaster event happens, y'all can reference this and say, okay, what's my first step? So your first step is to get on our transportation planning map, figure out your roadway, and whether it's going to be FHWA or FEMA. If the damages are over $5,000 and it's classification 1 through 5, it is FHWA eligible. If it's a 6 or 7 and has over $3,200 of damages, it becomes if it's a presidential declaration, it'll become a FEMA project. So the FEMA Public Assistance Program, I've got the policy guide and I've actually added a link in this presentation that takes you straight to our TxDOT website. We have an emergency relief link that we provided that has all the information you need for FEMA and FHWA. FEMA only covers presidentially declared events. The statewide cost threshold. Now when I say statewide cost threshold, it means city, county, every state department. So as a state, we have to have $38 million in damages before it's considered. It covers emergency and permanent work. It has to be $3,200 minimum per location. And it will go up. So these are just the categories of work for FEMA. I want to add that when you are working with FEMA, you work directly with FEMA. You need us to help you with FHWA, but FEMA, this is just put together for you guys information. So there's 3 categories. Category A, and that's debris removal. What's interesting about category A and B is that once it becomes a presidential declaration, FHWA does not get involved. Category A is debris removal. Category B is traffic control. Category C is infrastructure repair. The infrastructure repair will be either FEMA or FHWA depending on the class. So again, roadway classification criteria is 6 or 7. The cost share is typically 75% of all eligible expenses, but it can go up to 100% during presidential discretion. During Harvey, we were allowed to get 100% of debris removal recovered. Types of costs covered are state force account, so your labor, contracts, purchase order, administrative costs. The LPA works directly with FEMA, and one thing you might want to know is your labor cost on your overhead and your overhead cost, administrative cost. They only reimburse overtime. They don't reimburse your normal 40 hours. So it's only the overtime they work. So the FHWA Emergency Relief Program covers two different things: natural disasters and catastrophic failures. So of course, the natural disasters are hurricanes, floods, tornadoes. What we learned is it does not cover ice, so Uri was not reimbursable at all through FEMA or FHWA. There were a few counties that were declared for FEMA, but it was only for traffic control measures. Eligibility, federal aid roadways or highways, again, functional classification 1 through 5. And I keep emphasizing that because that's your first step, is to identify what classification of roadway it is. We have a lot of problems with the counties going straight to FEMA wanting reimbursement, and we find out months later, sometimes years, that it's actually a FHWA eligible roadway. So it helps you get your money back faster if you start there. And it does not cover any rural minor collectors. So TDM has put this tool out there now that y'all are going to have to start filling out. So when there is a FEMA eligible event, they're going to want you to go into a tool called PSTAT. And if you go to their website now, they have a video out there. I've put together what questions they're going to ask you, and I've also included the link. So that way, when you're going out there to assess your damages, you can take this checklist with you and go, okay, this is what they're going to ask me. So you can be prepared when you sit down. What I found out is that once you sit down, you can't submit it halfway through. It just doesn't. So you want to make sure to take the checklist with you, and while you're assessing your damages, cover everything. So the survey basically asks the same thing that they always ask. What type of disaster? Do you have any public utility outages? So this was the checklist I was referring to. You can take this and use it when you're doing your damage assessments. I just wanted to save you some time that you didn't get in there like I didn't, get halfway through and got stuck. And yes, TxDOT has to fill this out too. That's just for them. So the FHWA Emergency Relief Program, it's $700,000 in eligible damages before I can request funding. And when it's $700,000 in eligible damages, that's all of us together. So it's important that if you guys have damages to an FHWA eligible roadway, that you contact TxDOT and let us know, because we may be missing just that little bit that y'all could bump us over the edge that we become eligible. So just keep that in mind when you start seeking damages or doing your damage assessments. It has to be $5,000 minimum per location to be eligible. And they don't let you do a location of 2 miles. Like debris is a 1/4 mile section for FHWA. Damage must be the result of an eligible event. So what we see a lot is bridge damages, scour damages under bridges, that they request the bridge inspection from previous years, and it's already damages incurred. So if it just made it worse, they're not going to approve that. Emergency repairs begin immediately to restore traffic and limit further damages. Permanent repairs include restoration in kind to pre-disaster condition and requires prior FHWA approval. The cost share is 100% for emergency repairs, 90% for permanent interstate, and 80% for permanent non-interstate. So, ineligible work. FHWA has quite the list of ineligible work. Evacuations, heavy maintenance, and for those of you that don't know what heavy maintenance is, it means anything that you would have had covered in your normal maintenance budget. Pavement damage caused by traffic. So if we reroute traffic down another road, it causes damage. They won't pay for that. Erosion damage, prior scheduled work, minor pavement damage, catastrophic failure due to internal causes, repairs not related to the disaster, snow and ice removal, and heavy frosting. there's other types of work that may not be that may be ineligible, we highly suggest that you work with us and the FHWA area engineer to determine whether or not it's eligible before we go through all that work of entering it into MSAR. It is. So TxDOT administers the FHWA ER program on your behalf. So we're your partners when it comes to FHWA. You have to work through us, and we have to depend on you guys to keep us informed. We notify y'all of the event once it becomes the governor's proclamation. We assist you with identifying eligible roadways and damages. The link I provided in this slide, TxDOT.gov, will take you straight to your local government emergency relief page that has the statewide planning map and all of the policies. So if you have confusion or questions about your classification of roadway, that's what we're here for. We're here to help you. We are going to request ER funds on the state's behalf. That includes y'all. We'll coordinate locally administered projects, provide technical support, review projects and documentation, and provide oversight and inspection of the projects. So we really are your partners when it comes to this program. So as the event occurs, you want to make sure to gather that documentation at the very beginning, day one. Start gathering your labor and your payrolls, names and hours worked per location, the function that was performed on the work. FEMA requires a little bit more documentation than FHWA. FEMA actually wants your policies. So they want your labor policies, your HR policy, purchasing policies. So make sure you have those handy. We have all of our policies just downloaded to a drive, and when they request them, they have them. They're going to want your equipment number type and description, equipment uses by location and project, equipment costs, whether it's miles or hours, the name of the operator. FEMA wants that. FEMA also wants the title to your vehicles. So rental agreements, invoice with pickup, return dates for rentals, just about everything but blood. Materials, description of materials, quantities used, cost, proof of purchase, proof of stock usage, copies of POs. So if you gather that information before an event ever happens, you're prepared, you know it's coming. Pictures, take lots of pictures. You want to make sure they're date and time stamped. Make sure you're far enough back that you can see behind it. You can see where that actually is. You know, a picture of a cracked culvert looks the same in East Texas as it does in West Texas, except West Texas doesn't have culverts. Do they? I don't know. So they look the same. So make sure you stand back far enough that maybe you've got a creek name in it, or you can pretty much tell where it is. But make sure you have the GPS location on there too. That's very helpful. Y'all have any questions?
Our firstborn are off limits, right?
They haven't gotten a hold of mine yet.
I didn't see, that was the one thing I didn't see on the list. All right.
They haven't gotten mine yet, so I guess that's okay.
Any questions for Missy?
Would TxDOT be responsible for documenting all of that damage assessments on frontage roads?
We will assist you on the classifications 1 through 5.
Well, the on-system road is already classified. But do frontage roads count as on-system? Yes.
Yes.
Anybody else?
During large events, the FHWA AE, like during Harvey, they actually came out and rode and helped us all assess the damages. So they went out to the cities and counties. They were heavily involved with Harris County and City of Houston. So they are there to help us.
Anybody else? Thank you, Missy.
Thank y'all.
Very timely presentation. Just got an update.
Yeah.
Invest 99L is in the Caribbean Sea, and the trajectory is our way. So it's one of those things we got to be prepared.
Yeah. We're keeping an eye on it, but it is headed our way. That's all we need right now with our hospital at capacity. Item 2.5, discussion on the RGV thoroughfare plan amendment. Mr. Diaz.
Yes, good afternoon. We have kicked off the RGVMPO's Rio Grande Valley Thoroughfare Plan. We're asking for amendments towards the plan, which is pretty much right of way through the entire region. So we're asking all municipalities to go ahead and verify on our UMAP, which is our interactive map off of our website. That's where we have all the current thoroughfare plan data. As of now, the deadline for submitting amendments for this go around is December 17th. There's actually a meeting being held tomorrow to formally go over the process. It's going to be a virtual meeting. It's been sent out to TAC members and everybody else on the thoroughfare plan committee. So that's going to be held tomorrow at 10 a.m. virtually, and that's where we're going to discuss the process. The form that you're seeing up there on the screen is pretty much the submittal form. This form has recently been digitized by staff. So this form is the old PDF. So this isn't going to be used anymore. The virtual version actually provides for more data. You know, it's better data coming in for us, and it's more complete because it allows for certain fields not to be left blank. So that's what we're going to be using from now on. After we're through with the process, after December 17th, we'll bring it to TAC and policy. After hopeful approval, we'll go ahead and take it over to both county commissioners' courts with Cameron and Hidalgo and STAR now as well. So we'll go ahead and take those forward for final approval. Once those are approved, is when they will become active on our UMAP. And that's when you'll see the new right-of-way recommendations or that the municipalities have approved. All of them have to be, all amendments have to be accompanied by either a city ordinance or a resolution by the local government. That up there is the new virtual form. So that's the one that's going to be replacing the PDF form. And I'm going to be providing the link to that within the calendar invite that I sent out for tomorrow's meeting, and it'll also be on our website in the near future. So if there are any questions about the thoroughfare plan process or right-of-way amendments or any of that, I could take them at this time.
Anyone?
Just a comment. You know, we had a presentation earlier today regarding right-of-way acquisition. It is imperative that we have the thoroughfare map updated so that when projects do become, are being developed, we have as much of the right-of-way in place already to avoid having some of these budgetary constraints. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matthias.
Thank you.
Item 2.6, discussion on the City of Mission ongoing projects. Mayor Cañas.
Thank you, sir. I do want to preface that this is an informational video that I'm going to show you, and it's also the primary intent of it is to give situational awareness of what's coming up on the City of Mission in the next 10, 15 years as we progress forward. And piggybacking on what you just said about right-of-way, we are asking that if we're passing through your town or if we're passing through your county, we want to ask for approximately 100 feet more for the intention of doing a rail freight loop and or a passenger train. Along with the concept that the same thing that State Senator had on Armando Martinez from Weslaco here, as far as the future is bringing in, and we're asking for you to consider in your future projects, if this is passing through your city or your county, at least an additional 150 for the freight and 50 for the passenger, as far as that is concerned. So, without further ado, the staff can show the video. Thank you for the opportunity to present this to you. And again, this is an informational video, and it's also a situational awareness. So when you do your projections and you're planning in the future, if we're stopping through your city or through your county, please take this into consideration because we're working on pre-construction right now for the bridge, and we're expecting construction around 2025. With completion of 2027 at the current plans that we have as we move along forward as far as that is concerned. Without further ado, again, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very nice.
Any questions? All right. Item 4, RGVMPO executive.
The new staff offices. The staff in Edinburgh is settled in well at the Valley Metro station. Tom, Logan, we appreciate that. They've been very helpful in getting us settled. The Brownsville staff has been settled in at the transit station. But this Friday, we will be going over to Brownsville and moving them to their permanent location over at City Plaza. So, Mayor, we definitely appreciate that very much. We're very excited about that. We're hoping in December to maybe have one. I would really prefer 2. I just have to get with the city and see how they feel about it, but an open house, definitely at the Edinburgh location. So we'll be sending that out. We'd like to have everybody come and see where your staff is, see how your staff is maintaining, and just so that you're familiar with the facilities. And then if we can work out something with City Plaza as well, we'd love to have people over there for the offices, because we want you to utilize staff whenever you're in the area. Please come by, visit us, and take time, let us know of any concerns you may have. I do have an action item in your packet pursuant to our bylaws. I'm asking for staff to receive approval to travel to the TRB conference in Washington, D.C. I am not going on this trip. This would include Luis and some of our new staff. The approximate total is going to be about $2,500 per person, and that is going to be January 9th to the 13th of 2022. For any of you who are not familiar with the Transportation Research Board meeting that they have annually, this is the 101st meeting. They literally have breakout sessions from about 7 a.m. in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. I think it is hands down the single best availability for staff to learn and disseminate new information. And I certainly invite board members and any of your staff, if you have the opportunity to go in January to DC and partake in this. Registration begins in October. I would invite you to do so because I think it's incredibly dynamic. There's people literally from all over the world who come to share information and best practices. So we learn quite a bit of information. With that being said, though, Chairman, I'll step aside, and we are seeking approval of that travel.
Is there a motion to approve said travel?
Chair.
Motion by Mayor Mendez, second by Mayor Cañas. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay.
Thank you. So the financial update is in your packet. We're right in line to where we should be. We've actually expended 73%. We should be at 87.5. Those expenditures will come up because of the move of staff and the purchase of new furniture and equipment. So we will be right there getting closer to our 90 to 100% mark on that. I got a couple. Javier, go, come on. Javier Dominguez, one of my new planners that we brought on board, is going to give us just a brief update. We are working towards a resiliency plan, and Javier and Melanie in my office are heading this up. Quite a dynamic duo on this, and he's going to give you a brief update on it.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Javier, just like Andrew just mentioned. Sorry. I'm a Transportation Planner 1 at the MPO. I'm here to give you an update on our resiliency project, why it's important for our region, and what this could mean for our MPO. Resiliency is the ability to recover or adjust easily to adversity or change. It is more than sustainability or combating climate change. Resiliency is public health, safety, transportation, mobility, and economic opportunity. The plan is to collaborate with asset managers and non-asset managers to incorporate concepts of resiliency into ongoing and future projects within our MTP. With guidance from the Texas Transportation Institute, or TTI, we've begun working with the City of El Paso, Corpus Christi, MPO, as well as the HCAC, or Houston Galveston Area Council, just to name a few, in a work group setting discussing resiliency and preparation for the Texas statewide plan. This means we are already working on ways resiliency can be implemented into our transportation planning ahead of the statewide obligation. We have started gathering the names of key stakeholders as well as technical advisory committee members to invite to our kickoff meeting, where we will be conducting a resiliency workshop. The workshop will go over membership, which will be the formation of a subcommittee, our meeting schedule, how often we'll meet, as well as the option to have virtual or hybrid meetings, identifying regional problems and needs, goals, objectives, and recommended actions with a quick return on investment. The subcommittee's goal will be to build a plan for the region that will be updated every 2 years. That plan will be a conglomeration of various projects ongoing and in the works that will help administer communication and cooperation across our region. If any members of the board in attendance today would like to join or would like any of the information that we'll be gathering over the next couple of years for our plan, please feel free to let us know, and we'll be more than happy to extend that invitation as well as share any of our information. With that, I'm done with my update, and I'll be open the floor to any questions if there are any.
All right. Thank you, Javier.
Thank you, Javier.
Andrew, anything else?
Yes, sir. A couple of quick points. Thank you, Javier. Excellent. Couple of exciting things on our horizon. I was notified by TxDOT yesterday, and apparently we are. It could very well be done now. I haven't been informed today, but from TxDOT signing on behalf of the governor for the MAB expansion, which would include the urbanized areas of Stark County. So we are about to receive official notification, and we will be sure to reach out to Stark County, to the judge, to see who they will be looking to appoint to the policy board. Receive that information, and then, of course, inviting them to the policy board meeting next month if all that gets wrapped up like we think it will. We're very excited to say that we received funds through a grant at TxDOT's traffic safety program. Ava on my staff has done a fantastic job of spearheading this, and we received $41,480. With those funds, we're planning to distribute 2,725 bike helmets throughout through the region, distribute 5,000 bike lights also throughout the region, We're going to administer 2 hybrid trainings for up to 100 law enforcement officers. And we're going to administer 2 hybrid trainings for 50 project managers on safety strategies and project development. The goal of the RGV Traffic Safety Initiative is to reduce the number of motor vehicle related pedestrian and bicyclist fatalities and serious injuries, and we'll be kicking this off in the first quarter of FY22 with all the expenditure of the funds by September of FY22. So we're very excited. In 17 years, it's actually the first grant that the MPO has sought and received. So the credit for that goes to Ava. She was very tenacious on it, so we appreciate that. Next month, we also have some exciting news. The chairman will actually be seating there as the chairman. We'll have an election next month in accordance with our bylaws. The beginning of the fiscal year will be October, but we will have recognition for all that Mayor Hernandez has done for the policy board as its inaugural chairperson. And then in preparation for October's policy board meeting, if it's the will of the policy board, we will be seeking a vice chair from county region as vice chairman, and then the judge will be the chairman, taking the reins in October.
So that election for the vice chair will be at the next meeting, right?
At the next meeting, so we're ready to go for October. Yes, sir. So we're excited about that. And then finally, the census numbers are out. We are still trying to verify some of them. They're tremendously low. I don't think anybody is shocked by that, unfortunately. The one high point of it is that Edinburgh was the only local government entity to exceed the 50,000 bracket. So with that, we'll be coming back to the policy board possibly next month as well, after we verify everything, for what we assume would be a bylaw amendment, because there would be one additional vote awarded to the city of Edinburgh in compliance with our bylaws for exceeding that 50,000 bracket. They went over the 100,000 mark. Congratulations, Mayor, on the growth in Edinburgh. We are concerned, however, because we think that some of the numbers came in tremendously low. Weslaco, for example. I know my staff and I were working on some numbers that we had probably a year ago where we were looking at Weslaco was 48,000 and change. The official numbers came in at 40. 8,000 people below where we were. So that's very unfortunate. We're going to see what we can be done about it. There's probably nothing, but we're certainly going to investigate and see what we can, because we thought Weslaco would be our next partner at the table with exceeding that count. But that didn't happen with the official numbers that we have. With that, Chairman, unless there are any questions, I have nothing more for the committee today.
Does anybody have any questions for Andrew? I think we can all agree that, and congratulations to Edinburgh. They did a hell of a job. But even with that success, we know that everybody's severely undercounted, and what that equates to is too much money, again, that this region, that this valley is not going to be receiving. So talk to your to whoever you have on staff with regards to that. There is a mechanism, but it's all administrative, unfortunately, with regards to the undercount. Item 5, status report. TxDOT project status report. Okay, great. That was excellent. Moving along. No, I would ask whoever we have these reports, if you could make them as brief, since we've gone a little bit longer than anticipated and we got a little late start.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Ricardo Bravo. I'm here representing TxDOT in the FARI office. I'm here in conjunction with Mr. Rene Davila from the San Benito area office. We'll be making the presentation for the Rio Grande Valley MPO construction update for the month of August of 2021. As you can see on this slide, we have the US 83 relief route phase 2. The limits of this project are from FM 2221 to 0.28 miles west of Showers Road. The scope of this project is a new location expressway facility. The contractor is Police Construction Incorporated. They're about 63% complete, and the estimated completion for this project is August of 2023. Next slide. You can see the contractor, the contractor has already started to have built partially the connector. This is the view from the US 83 westbound frontage road. As you can see, the contractor has already done columns, gaps, beams, and already poured the slab and the rail for the connector. Next slide. As you can see that on this side, this is from the US 83 side. The contractors are already getting ready to start the construction of the abutments and the retaining wall, the connector, the US 83 connector on the westbound and on the eastbound main lane of the US 83. And this is another picture of the connector from the north side where the abutment is. The contractor has already placed riprap, has done the turnaround, and the westbound main lane traffic on US 83 is already flowing underneath the connector. As you can see, the contractor is making a lot of progress on this area. Next slide, please. This is another picture of the US 83 over the US, the FM 2221 roadway. As you can see, the contractor has already done the columns, the caps, placed the beams, and is already halfway through the bridges on both sides of the US 83. That would be the eastbound main lane and the westbound main lane. Next slide, please. You can see the contractor has already done the slab on the US 83 bridge. So basically, this bridge is just remaining for the concrete rails to be done, and the contractor should proceed to the eastbound main lane. Next slide. You can see from this picture taken from the US 83 westbound main lane. You can see the US 83 eastbound main lane bridge, which already has the column caps and beams, and the contractors already started work to prepare for the slab on the US 83. And you can see that the contractors are already working on the reconstruction on the FM 2221 on the east side of FM 2221. Next. On this one, you can see that the contractor was working basically in the area for the US 83 westbound main lane. They did you can see that the working on the placement of panels and constructing, the area and preparing it for the bridge slab. On this one, you can see that the contractor, this is on US 83 and Liberty Road. The contractor has made some advancement. All the columns and part of the caps have been built. Part of the roadway section on Liberty Road has already been done. And the contractor's already starting to put the panels and the MSC wall on the east and west side of Liberty Road. Next slide. This is another picture of the US 83. This one is over Tom Gill, and the contractor is making a little bit better progress. He has the columns, the caps. The roadway on Tom Gill is functioning with the traffic flow, and you can see the pictures looking to the east. The contractor's already making the embankment of the MSC wall or retaining wall. Next slide. Here's another picture also of Tom Gill, where the contractor's already placing an embankment and building up the wall, and is currently working in that area. Next slide, please. Here's another one. This is for the near Liberty Road. Like I said, the contractor's building up the MSC wall, placing select fill, placing reinforcement, and putting up panels, and building up the embankment. US 83. Here's another picture on the intersection of Liberty Road between Liberty and Tom Gill. You can see that the contractor is also advancing the embankment and the wall, and it's kind of from there on it will start working on the bridges. Mr.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Rene Davila, project manager at TxDOT. I'll be presenting two construction updates for Cameron County. The first one, FM 1847, the limits are from FM 106 to FM 2893. The scope of work of this project is to rehabilitate the existing roadway along 1847. Contractors foremost paving. Currently, we are at 71% complete, and the estimated completion date is March 2022. Next slide, please. Contractor has partially completed the east side of the roadway, and they have switched traffic. So now they're working on the west side of the roadway on proposed subgrade. Next slide, please. This is another section of the west side. This is a section from FM 510 to FM 2893. Contractor has completed the proposed subgrade and is now installing proposed geogrid. Next slide, please. Second project, FM 802. This project, the limits are from 1847 to Old Port Isabel. The scope of work of this project is to winding, to install a raised median, and to overlay. The contractor is Texas Cordia. Right now, we are at 53% completion, and the estimated completion date is March 2022. Next slide, please. For the winding, contractor has completed the first layer of hot mix and is now currently working on the proposed raised median. The winding is completed through all the project limits. And like I mentioned, they're working now on the raised median from 1847 to Hudson Boulevard. Next slide, please. This is just a final illustrated picture showing the raised paved median. Next slide, please. With this, we conclude our presentation. Is there any questions?
Just a real quick comment. US 83 relief route in the Peñitas, La Jolla area. There was phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 obviously started prior, but phase 2 has seen tremendous progress that they're both at 63% right now. So even though the slide shows August 2023 completion, likely it'll be delivered ahead of time to make the relief route complete in late 22.
Shouldn't have said anything, Pete. You know, yeah, hopefully that'll happen. Hopefully that will happen.
Pete, I wanted to ask, will this allow for the continuation of the Interstate 2 designation on the relief route?
That is exactly right, Andrew. Our goal and intent, just like on US 83, US 281 and 77, anytime we complete a project, we're getting ready to do that for the Willacy County portion of US 77 to make it I-69E. And so as soon as this is done, we work with FHWA to extend the designation of I-2.
And it's not within the MPO boundary, but I was just wondering if there's a timeline on the relief route in Fremont.
I do not have that information before me. I know that they've been in it for about a year. If I had to guesstimate, I would say 2 years from now.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for these gentlemen? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Cameron County RMA. Pete? Yeah, I'm going to pull rank here. Make it quick.
Yes, sir. So the first slide is Southport Connector project. Contractor is on schedule to complete the project by December. So that'll be welcome news. The next slide is the Veterans Bridge project. We're working with the MPO staff on the trade fair agreement with North Texas MPO. Next slide here is the Gap 2 project. We've got one gap remaining. When we complete it, we'll have an interstate highway going from I-69E to the entrance of the Port of Brownsville. We've got 90% PS&E already completed, coordinating with Union Pacific because there is a structure going over the rail line. Next slide is the East Loop. We're made a decision locally to fund the PS&E partnership between the RMA, Cameron County, and the city of Brownsville. So we're moving forward with the PS&E. We're developing the environmental documents in-house, and so it's about 80% complete. Next slide is West Rail Trail. We're expecting environmental clearance, probably in the next 30 to 45 days. We submitted the 95% PS&E on Monday. So we're hoping that we can resubmit the 100% in the next week or so. TxDOT is reviewing. We got comments from TxDOT yesterday, so we're readdressing those comments on 95% already. Once we get the environmental clearance and the 100% PS&E, then we'll go into the construction phase. The project is fully funded utilizing local money. Next slide. The Flor de Mayo Bridge, we have a draft presidential permit application. Hopefully, we'll be submitted this to the State Department next month. Next slide. Morrison Road, we're working with MPO staff, Federal Highway Administration on the functional classification of the road. Next slide. Old Dallas. There's two, we've submitted 90% PS&E. We're addressing comments that we received from TxDOT. We're doing the environmental document in-house. Right-of-way is in place and the utilities have been adjusted. So this is a project that we'll continue to work with the district office and the MPO on try to get it fully funded and into the STIP. Next slide. FM 509, working on the functional classification for it. Next slide is SPI second access. On this project too, we made a local decision to fund the environmental phase utilizing local money. So there is an agreement between the city of South Padre Island, Cameron County, and the RMA to fund that environmental phase. And so we will begin probably next month on the we have a draft EIS, but we'll be getting with TxDOT to develop and finalize the scope so that we can proceed with this phase. Next slide. Next two slides, I think, is South Parallel Corridor Phase 2, which will be lit this December. Next slide should be Phase 3. So we are working on this project as well. Next slide is a 2-to-1 connector that we'll be getting with TxDOT MPO on this project as well. West Boulevard working on functional classification with Federal Highway. Then the next slide is Whipple Road. We received 90% schematics from a consultant. We're reviewing those in-house before submitting to TxDOT. The environmental documents are about 75% complete. So with this, Judge, unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Ramon.
Thank you, Pete. Any questions? All right.
Good afternoon. I'm Ramon Navarro, Chief Construction Engineer for the Hidalgo County Regional Mobility Authority, and I'll be really brief. Good news is advance to page 5. We are in the bidding phase. A lot has happened since our last meeting for the 365 toll project. We received a notice to advertise, a release to advertise from TxDOT on the 4th of August, and the Sunday, the 8th, we were advertising for a 66-day bid phase. We have a mandatory pre-bid meeting on August 31st at the McAllen Convention Center at 9 a.m. We will have question and answers, Q&A for 45 days, which ends for the period of September 15th. We will issue any necessary addendums by September 24th and have a bid opening and a letting on October 13th at 3:05 p.m. The price tag is at $255 million, and therefore, thereafter, we hope to issue bonds, make the sales, execute contracts, and close the bond sale, have a pre-construction meeting, and commence turning dirt first of next year for 42 months and completing by August of 2025. This is an electronic bid, and it's being conducted via Civcast, so additional details can be found on our website. As far as IBTC, page 7, real quickly, we are still progressing on the environmental justices. We anticipate receiving approval on this in the fall of 2021 and foreseeing a summer letting of 2023 if possible, moving on to design, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocation thereafter. On page 11, the West Loop, or Section A West and Section C, as we know, the authority entered into an interlocal agreement with the City of Mission to manage the environmental process for the Madero Bridge, and we thereafter entered into a interlocal to conduct the environmental processes for the proposed conceptual rail component. This was up to Duval or Brooks County at the time, and I'm glad to say that in order for the authority to do business outside of Hidalgo County, we need acknowledgments and authorization from the adjacent county to conduct business. We have acquired Jim Hogg, and they just recently announced the Stark County has signed on. So we have 2 of the 4. And as far as the overweight network, page 14, we issued 25,338 permits to date on 2021. For the month of July, we had a slight decline of 2.5%, which is a common occurrence. Next page, please. And you can see that there was, for this month, we issued 3,526 permits, which is a slight decline of 2.5%. Moving on to page 16, the construction cost index continues its linear increase to 8.8%, which is notable for the environment we're in. And the next page, all construction materials have progressed in cost and continue to increase. This summarizes our report. Any questions I can entertain at this time?
Any questions for everyone? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Last presentation, the Regional Transit Metro.
Good afternoon, Policy Board members. My name is Frank Jaramillo, planner for Valley Metro. We're going to start, next slide, please. We're going to start off with Brownsville Metro with a grand total of 54,957 riders for the month of June. Next slide, please. Looking at ridership comparative to the previous year, we're looking at 54,957 versus last year's total of 45,595. Also, revenue hours, 5,393 versus last year's total of 4,505. Also, revenue miles for Brownsville Metro for June 2021, 66,786 versus last year's totals of 64,427. Next slide, please. Metro McAllen, June total, 37,755 riders for the month of June. Next slide. June ridership versus last year, 37,755 versus 36,896 riders for 2021 versus 2020. Revenue hours at 2,715 versus last year's total of 2,677. Last year's revenue miles for Metro McAllen was 36,480 versus 36,140 from last year. Next slide, please. Valley Metro's grand total for June was 19,270. Next slide. 19,270 versus last year's total of 17,932. Indicates a slight increase from last year. Revenue hours at 7,139 versus last year's of 7,133. Revenue miles were 163,534 for this year versus last year's total of 161,845. What isn't pictured is the system total for all the Metro services, which is for the month of June, 111,982. And that concludes my report. Open any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Jaramillo. All right, item 6, other business, old or new. Anyone? All right, our last item, our next meeting of the RGVMPO Transportation Technical Committee is scheduled for 10 a.m. on September the 29th, and our policy board is for September the 22nd at 1:30, correct?
The September 22nd for policy, yes, sir. The technical date is wrong.
Yeah, so, but it's the last Wednesday of the month, and it'll be the 29th. That's right.
Technical is before policy.
That's what I thought. That's why you said right now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the technical is on the 22nd.
Actually, technical is the 9th, sir. I apologize. And
all right. Let's
policy is always the
get us the right date.
Technical committee is going to be on the 9th.
September 9th. And ours will be?
And our policy meeting is going to be September 29th, which is the last Wednesday of the month.
Right. All right. Did everybody get that? Technical committee, September 9th at 10 a.m. And our next board meeting, September 29th at 1:30. All right. If there is no further business, I can have a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed, motion carries. Thank you all for